This video is sponsored by Shortform.
So here's the thing, for most of my life, I have found myself living in this strange dichotomy. This dichotomy that leaves me feeling passionate and like I care about all of these very heavy things, but then this other side of me that just really doesn't care about very much at all. To dive a little deeper, I guess I would say that there are certain things that I care very deeply about and that I think are really important and worthy of my attention and my energy. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that that list has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller, and that all of these things that we intrinsically as humans tend to focus on and fixate on and care a lot about are honestly just not worth our efforts and not worth our caring and our attention. I think that apathy is a very prevalent and quite honestly a very harmful attitude that infiltrates society in a lot of ways, and there could probably be a bigger discussion here about the negative effects of an apathetic society, but that's not what today's video is about. Today's video is going to be about 8 things that you are actually going to be much better off if you let go of. These are 8 things that I have personally had to teach myself to let go of and to stop caring about, and I think I'm so much better off for it, and I hope that you guys will find the same. Let's jump right into it. So the very first thing you need to stop caring about is one that I have admittedly struggled with for a very long time, but it's something that I'm working on and definitely getting better at, and that is offending people by setting boundaries. Nobody wants to be seen as confrontational or rude, but often the way you feel when you fail to set boundaries is so much worse than the discomfort you would have felt by just setting them to begin with. I'll give you a very recent example actually. A couple weeks ago, I got a phone call out of the blue from somebody who I used to work with at an old job. They're not a close friend of mine, they're not somebody that I see regularly, but they're somebody who I've kept in kind of casual communication with ever since I left that job, probably close to 10 years ago now. And they wanted to know if their stepdaughter, who I've never met before in my life, could stay at my house overnight on a weekend because they had to go somewhere that was close to where I lived and they didn't want to drive back and forth from where they lived. And I was like really thrown off by that because that's a huge imposition to me. I don't even know this person. The friend of mine that I know, again, I wouldn't even go as far as to call a friend, but maybe an acquaintance. I don't even know them that well, but their stepdaughter I have never met in my life, nor do I really care to. And to make matters worse, she had a dog that she was gonna be bringing with her. And I just thought that it was really honestly kind of rude for that person to even ask that of me in such a weird, imposing way. At first, honestly, I found myself tripping over my words because what I really wanted to say was abso-fucking-lutely not. But when I thought about it as I was talking to them for a minute or two, I recognized that me saying no wasn't rude. In fact, for them to ask that of me in the first place, especially given the nature of our relationship, but in general, that's such a huge ask. That was rude, not me. And I recognized that if I had somehow allowed this to happen, I would have been so uncomfortable and so angry and so resentful that it would have ruined the friendship I have with this person entirely because I would probably just avoid them going forward, never want to answer their calls again out of fear of what they were going to ask me the next time. And so I really had nothing to lose. If they were for some reason going to get offended by me politely saying no, it was going to end in the same result anyways. But I was just like, there's no way that I want this stranger in my home with their dog and Levi's an old boy and I'm not forget the intricacies. I'm not having a stranger stay over in my house. End of story. And so after kind of tripping over my words for a minute or two, I just said, you know what? I'm really sorry. I wish I could help you, but I'm really not comfortable with that. I can't let that happen. And that was the end of the conversation, and it was fine. And I think that we're still cool. I don't think there's an issue. Don't really care if there is, to be honest with you. The point is that I think it's important to be polite whenever you can, treat people with respect, but it is not rude to set boundaries, it is not rude to say no, and you are not required to give anybody an explanation for why you say no to certain things. Like I said, this is something that I've struggled with for a very long time, and I guess I still do to a certain extent. But a book that has really put it into perspective for me that I found really helpful was Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I found it to be equally insightful and pretty funny too, if I'm being honest. And often now when I find myself in a situation where I feel uncomfortable or like I'm not sure if I should care about something or like I'm stressing about something, I often mentally reference that book and think about some of the points that I took away from it and how I can apply it to the situation I'm in. And quite honestly, I think that there are a lot of books that can be really helpful in helping you navigate these certain situations. I know personally I have a very long list of books that I've heard wonderful things about and that I would love to read, and quite honestly, there just isn't enough time in the day to get to all of them. Especially when it comes to nonfiction books, if I'm being totally honest with you, I'm there for the information, I'm there for the main takeaways, and I often find myself reading through them and just wishing that the author would hurry up and get to the frickin' point already. Like, I don't want to read 300 pages about how your dad left for milk and never came back and now you have all these problems. Just tell me what I need to know and let me move on with my life. And that's why I'm such a huge fan of Shortform, who happens to be sponsoring today's video. Shortform is an app stocked full of condensed guides to thousands of nonfiction books covering pretty much any topic you could hope for. Finance, psychology, philosophy, whatever you're into, they got you. They're easy to read book summaries that help you quickly get the information you want without all the filler. Plus, there are these quick and easy exercises weaved in that can help you reflect on and better remember the material compared to just reading a normal book cover to cover. Shortform has had literally every nonfiction book that I've looked for and wanted to read so far, and they add new ones weekly, and members get to vote on which ones come next. To get started with a free trial of Shortform, plus receive 20% off your annual membership if you love it as much as I love it, head to shortform.com/accordingtonicole or click the link in the description box below. The second thing that I think is really important to stop caring about is trying to impress others, particularly when it comes to the things that you buy and the things that you own. Going back a little while, I had somebody leave a comment on one of my videos where I was talking about materialism, and they left a quote that I thought was really profound. It was, "I hope the label is worth your labor." And to me, I was mind blown when I read that. Like, I totally agree, but I thought it was put so eloquently. I often find myself fascinated by observing people and their habits, and specifically the motives for those habits. I always wonder what is going through somebody's mind, for example, when they go and they buy a $100,000 car. To be fair, I'm not trying to begrudge anybody of anything. It's your money, it's your life. If you're not hurting anybody, then you do you. But it really makes me wonder, like, why? The only conclusion I can come to is that people think that owning these certain things, whether it's a fancy car or an expensive house or designer name clothing, whatever it may be, that it's going to project a certain image about them to the public, and that people are going to assume certain things about them that they want them to assume, namely that they're wealthy, that they're successful, that they're important. And personally myself, maybe this is my own bias, I don't assume any of those things when I see that kind of thing. I just assume somebody's super insecure. And really, if you're doing things just for the approval of others, you are insecure. That to me is not the idea of success or of contentment in life. But I myself, honestly, have always been kind of the complete opposite. I've always found pride in being able to make something from nothing. And I have always enjoyed the feeling of being the small fish in the big pond and knowing that I've still worked my way into that position. For example, the neighborhoods that I often find myself in for work are neighborhoods where I could personally never afford to live. These people are generally several tax brackets above me, and that's totally fine. But I find it really interesting when you drive through these areas and you recognize that everybody looks exactly the same. They all have like the same house, probably the same landscaper doing their gardens. They all have the same cars on their driveway. They all wear the same clothes. They all have the same type of dog. They all have an Apple Watch. They all look like carbon copies of one another. And to me, it just leads me to believe that they're all just trying to keep up with one another. When I first started working in these neighborhoods, I was driving a $4,000 car. It was 12 years old, it was leaking oil. I had to park on the road so I didn't ruin everybody's fancy like interlock driveways. And a lot of people probably would have felt embarrassment to roll through these neighborhoods where the driveways all had BMWs and Lexuses and Audis on the driveway, driving such a turd of a car. And to be honest with you, I felt zero embarrassment. In fact, I felt really proud of the fact that these people who were on paper a lot more successful than I am and a lot more accomplished than I am, and they still needed little old me. And look at me in my little shitty Honda car, and they want my services and they're paying for my time. And I felt proud of that. And I think that when you can let go of the idea that other people are going to judge you or they're going to base the amount of respect they have for you based on what you own, your life will be so much better and so much easier. And to be honest with you, and I mean this genuinely, I know everybody says it, but you will find that it's true if you put yourself in the positions to figure it out. Nobody cares. Nobody cares what you drive. Nobody cares where you live. Nobody cares what you wear. Live your life for you, but stop trying to impress others. All right, moving on. The third thing that you need to stop caring about is something that I preach about a lot on this channel and in my everyday life, and it is work drama. I personally will never understand the people who get personally offended or upset by things that happen at their job. And this is especially the case for people who are not self-employed. If you work for a business, I feel like this is even more important. But in general, I think it's really important to recognize that no matter how much you like or dislike your job, no matter how much you like or dislike your coworkers, at the end of the day, you're only there because you have bills to pay. And what happens between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. really doesn't matter. If you're asked to do a job that's outside of your job description, sure, fine, whatever, do it. If a customer is rude to you, okay, fine. If your coworker is an asshole, okay, fine. The fact is that by 5 p.m. you get to punch out and you get to go home, and that's when real life starts. Your job is not your real life. Your real life is what your job allows you to pay for, right? Your real life is your friends, your family, your hobbies, your pets, your interests, the things that make you actually fulfilled. And your job doesn't necessarily have to be a part of that. It just has to be able to afford you that life.
Could we have the money now?
I look at it like when you go to the movie theater and your job are the trailers that are playing before the movie. It's the commercials. Maybe you like them, maybe they interest you, maybe they don't. It doesn't really matter because you're only there to actually watch the movie, and the movie is your real life. If your work is really busy and you're finding it stressful, or your work is really slow and you're finding it boring, if your coworkers are unpleasant, if customers are horrible, you know what? Who cares? Just do what you gotta do and then go home and live your life, and you will be so much better off for it. I'm not saying that I never fall into this trap myself. I'm sure you guys have heard me bitch and complain plenty about work, and I know I do it sometimes in my everyday life as well, but I try to catch myself and I try to correct myself, because at the end of the day, what happens during my workday is not super relevant, and guess what? Then I get to go home and forget all about it and live my real life. For your sake, I hope you like your job, or at least certain aspects of it, but that's not a requirement because work is not your real life. Say it with me. Work is not your real life. Go home. The fourth thing on this list is something that I don't think gets talked about nearly enough, but I think it's really important, and it's that you should stop caring about following arbitrary rules based on a certain identity or a certain label. This can apply to anything from religion to political ideologies, ethical philosophies, lifestyle groups, really just about anything. The fact is that no matter what you're doing in life, no matter what your intentions are, there's always going to be somebody there to criticize and pick apart why you're not doing enough. Even on this channel, I get lots of comments and messages from you guys who ask me things like, well, if I own this certain item, can I still be a minimalist? Or I like this thing a lot and I don't want to get rid of it. Am I still a minimalist? Or who accuse me of not being a minimalist because I own certain things or do certain things. And I don't know why anybody cares. I don't know why anybody cares what I do or why you care what somebody thinks about what you do. If it brings you joy, then you should do it. And if you're trying to follow things just to be able to uphold a certain label or certain ideology, you've probably lost from the start. I know that there are plenty of people out there who probably think that I'm not a minimalist because I live in a 3-bedroom house by myself, or who think that I'm not a vegan because I feed my dog meat, or who think this or who think that. And ultimately, I think we're all just trying to do the best that we can. And I'm a firm believer in the idea of when you know better, you do better. But if you're only doing things to try to fit under someone else's definition of a certain label, if having that label on your shirt is that important to you, I don't even know what to say. Your priorities are out of whack. Grow up. All right, the fifth thing that you need to stop caring about should be a pretty straightforward one. It should be a pretty obvious one, but it seems like it never really is, and that is other people's business. If somebody else is doing something that does not harm you, does not affect you, and does not harm anybody else,
mind your damn motherfucking business, bitch!
Stay in your lane, shut your mouth, keep your opinions to yourself, and go back in your house and close the door. What somebody does, as long as they're not causing any harm, is not your problem. Moving on. All right, the sixth thing you need to stop caring about is something that I think we've all gone way too far in as a society, and that is internet arguments. The fact is that you cannot change a closed mind. You cannot convince somebody of something that they're not willing to listen to. A lot of people nowadays are in the habit of listening to respond rather than listening to learn, and you are just wasting your energy. I think it's really important to understand that your efforts and your energy are finite. And if you waste them banging your head into a wall over and over again, yelling at somebody on Facebook, you're not going to have any effort or energy left to dedicate to the things that actually matter and to the things that are actually going to make a difference. In order for a discussion or a debate to actually be productive, both sides have to be open to receiving new information and then adjusting their belief system based on that information. But that's rarely the case. And unfortunately, that has created a large divide in the world as a whole. And I'm hoping that there will come a time where people are more open to listening than they are to being heard. But unfortunately, in the meantime, yelling at people on the internet, starting fights in the YouTube comments, all of that kind of stuff is just a waste of your time and a waste of your energy, and you're getting yourself flustered and angry for no real productive cause. All right, number 7 is going to be a bit of a silly sounding one, particularly given the fact that you are currently watching a YouTube video, but I'm going to call it internet guru advice. By no means do I consider myself to be a guru in anything, but I think that there's a very prevalent society right now that fixates on this like monk mode thing where you wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and early bird gets the worm, drink your green smoothie, hustle, 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 work harder, never take time off.
The only time success comes before work is in the dictionary, and I can't read.
And it makes us feel like we're doing something wrong by just being normal humans, by living a good life, by relaxing, by enjoying things just because we enjoy them. And I want to say that all of that is total bullshit. Contrary to what the internet might lead you to believe, your worth as a human being and your success in life is not going to be dictated by taking a cold shower. The fact is that all of us are unique individuals and we all have different things that work for us. We have different things that make us feel good and make us feel bad. We have different circadian rhythms. We have different sleep schedules, different bodies. And ultimately, you have to do what works best for you. To be quite honest with you, my lifestyle is probably the complete antithesis to the hustle bro culture. I mean, for starters, I'm not a bro, but I am sure as shit not waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I have no desire to ever take a cold shower. That sounds miserable. I don't like green smoothies. I've never really meditated. I wake up without an alarm clock, generally around 10 o'clock in the morning, sometimes later. By nature, I'm a night owl, and as such, I have curated my life, my work, and my schedule to fit around what I find works best for me. And honestly, none of that has led to me being a failure in life. I've been able to accomplish all the things I need to accomplish, and I've done it my way, and I think that you should do the same. All right, and finally, number 8 on the list of things you need to stop caring about, or as Mark Manson would put it, things you should stop giving a fuck about, would be being judged by others for the things that make you happy. I've personally never believed in the idea of a guilty pleasure. I've never understood why somebody should feel guilty for the things that they like, especially if we're talking about things like music, movies, books, TV shows. Those are such personal experiences. When you're listening to a record or you're reading a book, you are emotionally connecting with that piece of art in a completely personal and individual way, and it has no effect on anybody else. And the idea that there are certain bands that are considered cringy or certain movies that are considered like faux pas to enjoy is just asinine to me. Something that has really come to annoy me as I've gotten older is the fact that when I was young, when I was in middle school and high school, I was into all of like the emo and pop punk bands like Simple Plan, Good Charlotte, New Found Glory, Blink-182, Sum 41, all those guys. And back then, it was not cool to listen to that kind of music. And doing so was a sure shot way to be ridiculed and picked on and laughed at. And honestly, I didn't care because I loved it and I wasn't going to stop loving it for other people. And I didn't feel the need to hide it because I wasn't doing anything wrong. It really irritates me to know that now, 15 years later, those are now considered cool bands to be into. And all of the kids who probably made fun of me back then go and see those bands in concert now, which means that they were just posers and they probably liked them all along, but just didn't have the guts to admit it, which is so stupid. But if you enjoy something, if it brings you genuine joy, if it makes your life better, and once again, if it's not hurting anybody, you have literally no reason to feel guilty about it. If you like Nickelback, enjoy Nickelback. In my case, I loved Simple Plan. I still love Simple Plan, and I don't care what anybody thinks about it. I think a lot of it comes down to immaturity on both sides. Immaturity is what makes you feel embarrassed for the things that you like, but immaturity is equally what makes people think that they have the right to pick on you or judge you or belittle you for the things that you like. So ultimately, everybody just needs to grow the hell up. That's my synopsis on the world. There you go, the world according to Nicole. Anyways, I am very curious to hear your thoughts on this topic. I'm curious to know what you think about the 8 points that I made, but more specifically, if there's anything else outside of those that you think you are better off and you don't care about. Let me know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video at all, if you found it at all helpful, entertaining, insightful, anything like that, please go ahead, hit that like button. It takes you like 1 second and it really actually does help out this channel a lot. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't done so yet. You can follow me on Instagram at according_to_Nicole. If you'd like to further support the channel, there is a Patreon link in the description box below. Other than that, thank you guys so much as always for watching. Can't wait to read your comments. Take care. I'll see you next week.